I love it. I love it. Well, let's get in earnest. Let's get into your life. Let's get into your work. So again, thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Of course, of course. Thanks for having me, man.
You bet. Let's begin our journey with this. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, changed the world. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you do things and like living and business today?
Yeah, pandemic, New York City. It was probably one of the strictest places in the country, and in the beginning, it was, oh well, what is it gonna? It's a short vacation to take some time off, and blah blah blah. Like many people, like, oh, it's this. Let's just have a little vacation, and then it was, wow, this is gonna be no end in sight for a while.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was okay. We produced weddings for a very long time up to that point, but now we can't do weddings. Is virtual weddings going to be a thing? Very quickly, we realized not really. It was happening, but it wasn't going to be this massive place for us to pivot and to add a lot of value because most people were like, all right, we're just going to postpone until like the time comes. For us, it was where else can we add value? And we decided to pivot and reach out to schools in the New York area. I was living in Queens at the time, and a lot of our team and resources are based kind of in the New York City vicinity. And it's like we reached out to schools. Hey, we're a production company. We have talent. We do music, and can we help you in any way? Can we help you in any way? We were just like proactively reaching out. And very long story short, got an opportunity to have an interview with the head of technology for New York City schools.
Wow.
And they're like, hey, we need help with graduations. Could you help us? And at the time, like, who knows how to produce a virtual graduation? Nobody. There was never a need for it.
Yeah.
But, the entrepreneur in me is like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to add value. They're like, if we were to give you 20 or 30 graduations, within the next few months, could you do it? Because June is when graduations happen.
Yeah.
Stuff started shutting down March, April. So we only had a couple months to really figure it out. And long story short, he's like, if we were to give you 20 or 30, could you do it? The old version of me would have said, I don't know about that one. But the entrepreneur in me is like, we're going to figure it out. I'm going to be resourceful. I know a lot of people, right? And so the first year we did, something like 50 plus of graduations, virtual graduations, because we got on the list.
Yeah.
And then the following year, like even more, and it was a blessing. And we just had a lot of ways that we could add value to so many people, like 50,000 streams, like plus in 75 countries. It was so cool, Joe, to go from not impacting love in a wedding capacity,
Yeah.
to impacting global families and children in their graduation in these various ways. And that's how we were able to really pivot through the pandemic times.
So let's go to right now. I'm going to put you in front of 13-year-olds. You're at career day, and one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you synthesize your day job to make sense to their brains?
Ooh, good question. We bring some of the best music to weddings so that people leave that event saying, oh my gosh, this was the best celebration we have ever been to. One of our lines, this is maybe not for the youngster, but decades from now, people are still raving about your entertainment. We always have brought this like unique angle. We've, for me, the marketer, entrepreneur, started as like, hey, I'm a DJ. Like, I just love music. I love to bring music to events. And then it was just always the question of, oh, Seth Godin wrote a book called Purple Cow, where it's like, if you're driving by and you just see a bunch of cows and you keep seeing cows for many, many miles, it all becomes a lot of cows and a lot of the same. But if you saw a purple one, you're going to maybe stop and maybe even pull over and photograph that thing and knock on a door and say, hey, can I go see your purple cow? And so there's that uniqueness thing on how to stand out. I became kind of fascinated with how to make us more and more unique. And that's where we're blending live musicians with a DJ. That's kind of what our brand specializes in. So that's the long-winded version of career day, but that's how I'd sort of say, music for weddings in a really unique way is how we approach it.
So when you were sitting in that seat at career day, what was your dream gig? What did you want to do when you grew up?
I think I wrote baseball player down at
Yeah.
a certain point. I I don't know if like music was at the forefront. I'm thinking elementary school right now. I mean, I used to dance in the mirror to Michael Jackson, and I still haven't seen the movie, and everybody said the movie was great, and I still want to see the movie. Um, but I feel like it was sports because I was very into sports. You know, Little League was right nearby my elementary school. I was there regularly. I think it was sports
Yeah.
in elementary school career day.
Yeah. So let's find out how you got to where you're at today. Take me back to the beginnings. What was going on? What were the seeds that were planted that eventually led you to be an entrepreneur? The idea of giving entertainment to people, to create these indelible moments that people will remember forever. What was it about your life early on that made you become who you are today?
My parents have always been people that have allowed my siblings and I to try things without limits.
Yeah.
And they never instilled this limitation mindset early on. It's like, try this, see what you want to get into. It was it was sports when I was in elementary school. In middle school, I was with, a bunch of buddies where I had this fascination and interest around music. Had a boy band where we sang Boys to Men and In Sync, and we performed at the extravaganza to choreography, on stage. So it was just this permission to try things. I played the drums in middle school as well. So just like music and trying it in all these different ways. And then fascination for recording studios and recording. And my parents, when they remodeled our basement in Queens, I'm like, Dad, could you install a little recording booth near this part of the remodel and maybe run a pipe underneath the floor to run some mic cable and some headphone cables so we could create a booth? He's like, sure, why not? So we had a recording booth right next to the boiler
Wow.
of my basement.
Yeah.
And so my parents were just always open to allowing us to just spread our wings, see what we like, see what's possible. And they think that, I think that was the early stages around how limitless life can be, or
Sure.
how there's no limit to possibility, only the limits you place on yourself.
Hmm.
That was very much the early seeds planted from my parents. And then fast forward into my professional life, I had a huge fascination with personal development and putting myself into rooms around what are high performers thinking? Like, how are they wired? My dad's an immigrant from Colombia, came when he was very young. My parents both come from my dad from a poor family, my mom from a middle class family in Queens. And I was blessed that my dad pushed through and was able to provide a nice stable household and income for the family. But for me, it's like, how do I learn even more beyond what my family has taught me? And so going to marketing conferences and spending a little bit of this uncomfortable money that I've made doing, odd jobs early on to get into rooms. And so I started to think and learn from people that have figured out marketing and figured out high performance thinking and identity and what our beliefs even mean and what we're conditioned to believe based on what we've learned up to now, but what is required for continued growth. And so that's been a big fascination for me into my 20s and now 30s that has helped me continue to ascend, build a company, and design a life that I'm very proud of.
So you get the opportunity to give people entertainment, indelible moments they'll always remember. Go back to your beginnings. What was the first live show? What was the first production that you saw that blew you away?
I saw an Earth, Wind, and Fire concert
Yeah.
in Chicago. They did a little tag team show with my parents at Jones Beach Theater
Wow.
in Long Island, New York. Must have been when I was maybe 22 years old, 23 years old, probably something like 15 to 20 years ago, I'm going to say. And yes, I grew up listening to those CDs. My parents had them on blast. My parents' wedding song is You're the Inspiration by Chicago.
Yeah.
It's their wedding song. And even now, fast forward, I'm like, man, those are some heavy hitter bands,
Yeah.
both of them.
Yeah.
Like the records that both of them have produced, another level. And it was just, this is the musical programming that I think has been kind of part of my DNA now, that early on we're just inspiration of like, man, that's possible to have a group that is able to move people with music in that way. And so that's probably one of the coolest shows I've ever seen. I've been blessed to see a number of others, but that's one that comes to mind as you ask that question.
That's awesome. So, who's your hero? Who's been your inspirational force that's allowed you to find success, to find your place in the planet?
These are great questions that nobody has ever asked me, Joe.
Good.
I think it's a combination of both my parents up until my 20s. And then for me, it's been, who else can I look up to that, and honestly, Tony Robbins is probably somebody I would put in that category of me trying to figure out we'll call it next level. I think I was at a point where my business was very commoditized, and I was DJing weddings, and I was another DJ in the New York market. And I was just thinking, how can I make more? How can I earn more? How could I what are the people doing stuff in this premium and luxury category? Like, what do they know that I don't?
Yeah.
How are luxury brands doing the thing? And so honestly, for me, I went to a number of Tony Robbins events when I was in my 20s. And people think it's hoorah rah, you're going to drink the Kool-Aid, you're going to jump around and cheer. And there's some silliness to it, but it's mostly learning about the programming that brought you to where you are, and how what you think every day, what you say about yourself every day, is literally the driving force of what you're going to continue to create or what you're going to evolve into. Something that I've become fascinated with, Joe, is identity of self. And there's a mindset coach by the name of Todd Herman. He wrote a book called The Alter Ego. And this was private up until not too long ago. But he ended up being the person that helped Kobe Bryant create the alter ego Black Mamba. So we thought it was just maybe Kobe created it and it was a nickname given by somebody, and that's just what stuck. But the significance of the Kobe Bryant to Black Mamba evolution was almost showing up and putting on something. Maybe it's a bracelet, it's putting on a particular type of sock or sneakers, putting something on as the activator for your identity shift to alter ego. Black Mamba. Black Mamba was this fearless, 100% self-belief, relentless, all those bullet points of identity traits that Kobe knew he needed to embody to become the greatest he could possibly be. That was the traits of Black Mamba. Early on, when Beyonce wanted to create next level of who she needed to become, she created Sasha Fierce. As a matter of fact, there was an album called I Am Sasha Fierce by Beyonce.
Yeah.
Here's this church-going Christian gal who now needs to step on stage and embody this more provocateur type of persona. And it was intimidating. It was a little scary. It was this, it was this, it was this. Who were the bullet points of who Sasha Fierce needed to be in order to become that next level of herself? And then she eventually retired Sasha Fierce. Why? Because that identity became her new baseline. That identity became her new standard. She became comfortable in that identity. And for me, who do I have to be now to become the person that I know I want to be in the future? It's a little bit backwards. I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, I have to do stuff now so that I can become this version of who I know I want to be in the future. Well, one day I'll become that person. One day I'll become good enough. One day I'll be able to achieve that goal. The high performance identity shift is, who do I have to be right now? even though I don't feel ready, even though it maybe feels a little funny, so that I can have that ideal future. And so Tony Robbins was an early person, probably 10, 12 years ago, that made me aware of this type of thinking. And it's been a game changer for me to learn about identity, to learn about belief systems, to learn about how to rewire my brain so that I can create the life that is most ideal for me in these various chapters as I'm living it. Like, because my 20s were very different than now my 30s. I have a 22-month-old, and my mindset is very different now than it was, let's say, 10 years ago. And so to just be able to kind of choose what do I want it to look like now for my wife and I, it's just fascinating how there's an Olympic medalist who somebody asked her, can you bring us into your brain a little bit? 22 years old, Olympic gold medalist in the skiing category. Can you just bring us into your brain a little bit? And she pretty much summarized, you could think and create your own reality. She said, with neuroplasticity, you can become what, when you were a young child, you could become that superstar to what your 7-year-old version of yourself would have revered. And I agree with that. And so I love how you could just create whatever you want and lean into it. It takes practice, but it's been really cool to be able to learn these things.
And speaking of, if you have a dream tonight, you run into the 18-year-old version of you, you walk into a room, there's a film projector, you click play, and a 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up on the screen. Is that young version of you going to believe that your life turned out this way?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm just like trying to put myself back in elementary school. I love how you're forcing my brain to think of these things. These are great questions, Joe.
Yeah.
You know, at that age, we don't know a thing, right? Is to put it straight. To have a business in a different part of the country, but to be in a place, I think I shared with you, and I think it was before we started, but like, we have a business based out of New York, but it's remotely kind of positioned business. And I now live full time predominantly in Sarasota, Florida, where my wife and I mostly live. I still travel a bit for some events, but to just think that this is my life. Like I coach somebody I coach event pros, and there's a guy who runs a business out of Oregon on the West Coast. And I told him, like, this is what I've set up. And he was just like, man, that would be so cool if I could do something like that. And so very humbly, I say I've been blessed to figure out how to create a life that I'm very proud of. And years ago would probably would feel almost far-fetched. And that's what I've learned to realize, that everything is figure outable. You just have to have this belief that I'm gonna push at it, even though I don't know exactly how it's gonna be real. Buy a home in Sarasota, but still have a business based out of New York. But we're gonna figure it out, and it's gonna be great. It's always this like abundance mindset of how I've been able to just build things that maybe have never. It's not like the standard, or it's not the norm, is what I would say.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone in your business world, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a giver. I'm a positive person. I love the future. I love thinking about the future. I love waking up to a compelling excitement of what's still to come. One of my mentors said, when your future is more compelling than your past, you're going to wake up every day with excitement, regardless of age. Yeah. I have family that have said, oh, well, I'm almost 80 years old, and, sort of the negative language that may come along with older age. One of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, he's like 82, 83, and he achieved more between age 1 and 69 Sorry, he achieved more between age 70 and 80 than he did between age 1 and 69.
Yeah.
And so how do you live with excitement and with tenacity? It's just always thinking about the future. I believe I'm somebody that almost never sees any negative frame with anything, ever. Anything that might be a business shortcoming or something that didn't work out, or we maybe invested money to try something, but it didn't result in what we wanted. I'm always thinking of it not from the scarcity frame of mind. Some people may default to the scarcity of, I'm never going to try that again. I'm not hiring somebody in this category ever. It was a failure. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do it all myself. What I've learned to train myself in who I want to be from an identity perspective is I always want to be somebody who's learning and gaining wisdom for things that don't always pan out exactly the way I want them to. And it be either a win or learning and wisdom, but never a failure.
Yeah.
Ever. And therefore, my life is always in a positive direction, even when a bunch of this stuff didn't work. Because if you look at anybody that has maybe have some level of achievement, there's so much failure, but it's the 3% achievement that has been the magnification, that has been the growth, that is what has actually worked. That I think that's the big one for me. Is like whenever somebody comes to me with some negative something, I'm just like, all right, let's look at it from what we can control and what is the positive move from here.
For sure. So if anybody wants to delve into the good business in your world, anything and everything that you're doing, they want more, where do they go? How do they do that?
Yeah, just connect with me on social at Daniel T. Linares on Instagram, DanielTLinares. On Instagram, DanielLinares.com. We'll be launching a new site shortly. And if there's one person got some value out of this, that's why, I'm on this call with Joe today. And thank you so much for having me, Joe.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I will put all these links in the show notes and keep changing the world, man. I really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And